In the peak year of World War I, 12 Canadian hospitals in Europe handled as many as 90,000 casualties, getting their patients well enough to be moved back to hospitals in Britain or Canada. They responded to wounds that had never been seen before, trauma on a scale unheard of to that time. And they did it under conditions that were scarcely better than those of the trench soldiers themselves.
Of course, all of our hospitals were in tents. We lived in tents too, with earth floors. When you think of it now, when people wonder about their floors, we didn't even, it was just the tent and then the earth. And we lived in these tents, and the hospital was tents too. And of course, when there was an air raid, we always had to lower the beds were low anyhow, they were just cut, but we had to lower the beds right to the floor. So the shrapnel all around the outside of the tents, there were sandbags piled up, you know, quite high. So if there was shrapnel, it wouldn't hit the patient.
In a raid, there was often little choice. The enemy shrapnel raining from above, or the large, aggressive rats fed on human flesh in no man's land, waiting below.
The stretcher bearers would pick them up in the battlefield and bring them to the nearest hospital. But I remember the first convoy. I guess the only time that I really cried was the convoy of people coming in that were gassed. And that's almost worse than people with amputations, things like that, because the gas cases, you know, their eyes are practically bulging out their tongue. And it's a very awful sight when you see gas patients.
In the Second World War, there weren't the amputations. You could get it, put them in a plane, they were in their blighty right away, or they had everything, every equipment. But in the First World War, they didn't. If a leg is gangrene, off it came.
Improved medical procedures, new drugs, faster transport, and simple experience helped to reduce the number of deaths in World War II, despite the fact that many more were under arms than in the First World War. Canadian nursing sisters watched with their Allied counterparts as the Battle of Britain unfolded, looking after its casualties, assisting as new forms of medicine were developed, and once again, caring for boys with new and terrible injuries.
We had a feeling that we were there to help, but I don't think we knew that it would be as constant, as persistent, and as draining as it was. We worked long hours. We weren't supposed to, but I was in charge of the operating room, and I would have to work 12 hours on and then 2 or 3 hours off and 12 hours on. But the reality of it, we knew there would be bombs. We knew there would be injury. We knew that there would be death, but we never knew it would be on such a large scale.